My name is Barry Trenham, and I'm on faculty with the Department of Occupational Science and Occupational Therapy at the University of Toronto. I'm also a CareWatch board member. CareWatch is a senior-led group of senior advocates who is looking at issues related to, for the most part, supportive home services. CareWatch is part of a participatory action research project, which I'm heading up along with Dr. Sheila Naismith, which is looking at how can we tap into the experiences of this group of seniors. One of the outcomes of the research project to date is a series of videos where we're looking at how members of CareWatch have experienced ageism, how they've overcome it, and what we can learn from their experiences. The video that you're about to see features Bea Levis, and Bea Levis is a very well-known Toronto senior activist whose life is a real testament, I think, to a senior citizen. So we're going to start soon, Bea.
All right. Well, whenever.
And I guess the first questions is just some basics. When you were born and where you were born.
Okay. When was a long, long time ago, 1918. The family lived, and my mother lived in Welland, Ontario, which is in the Niagara area. But her family lived on a farm outside of Galt, and so she had come there and then had me in the hospital.
Okay. So you were a Jewish family in small town Ontario.
Yeah.
Only
so
Jewish
we're
family?
outsiders.
Yeah.
Outsiders. No, not the only Jewish family, but the only ones who were not affiliated to the synagogue.
Oh, okay.
So we were outsiders.
Outsiders from the Jewish community as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Did that sense of being an outsider shape who you were?
Yeah,
How
definitely.
So?
Well, because I didn't feel I belonged anywhere.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what you remember of that time?
Well, it was the Depression years.
Right, yeah.
And there was a lot more grassroots sort of movements going on then than now.
How many women were graduating in 1940 from the University of Toronto?
Well, I'll tell you that in the course that I attended, there were 3 women, and that was political science and economics.
What got you interested in the labor movement and unions?
Oh, well, I was the hot radical.
Back in 1940? Yeah. Were your parents hot radicals?
Well, they were radical, yeah. I mean, they were non-compliant kind of Jewish family, but not religious. And my grandmother was a hot radical.
Was she a mentor of sorts, or?
She was, in a sense, in a big sense, yeah.
When did you become a teacher? How did that happen?
Oh, that happened almost by mistake. Not by mistake, but it just happened. It wasn't advanced planning at all. I had, I married someone who was an accordion teacher of all things, that seems unlikely. And we moved to Calgary, and we lived there for 15 years, and all my children were born there. Later on, when my husband wasn't too well, and I had to think about a way of making a living for the family. And so I went to the university to see about enrolling as a teacher. And he heard my last name, and he said, "You'll never have a job teaching in the province of Alberta as long as I'm around."
Oh my goodness. What year was that?
So that would have been in 58, 59, somewhere in there.
And did you defy him? How did you respond to that?
Well, I responded by thinking, as I thought a lot about Ontario.
Was the main reason for you returning to Toronto because you were not, he was going to block the way for you teaching because you're a Jewish woman?
Not because I was Jewish, but because I was left-wing. He knew that because my husband had run for consul or something, and he was a lefty.
Huh. So there was no place for you in
No.
Alberta?
No.
So you said, see you later, Alberta.
I was very happy to say goodbye to Alberta.
So you came back to Toronto. You were the prime wage earner in the
That's
family.
right. That's right.
So you taught where?
I taught at Mimico High School.
Oh.
I taught Latin, if you could believe. I taught geography and history, and but then and English, but I settled down gradually as I became more of a member of the faculty, and I was able to teach economics.
So all these years you're teaching and you're raising
3 girls and 1 boy.
Oh. And your husband wasn't so well.
No.
Your left-wing interests, labor movement, how did that...
Out.
So your involvement in other social movements, no time, I guess. Did you follow them? I'm thinking of, you went through the 60s with the women's rights movement and...
Oh yeah. I followed all of that. Yes,
So you were following more from a distance over those years, or...?
No, because I could not.
Right.
I could not.
Yeah.
Do it.
You're busy surviving, basically.
Yeah,
Teaching.
yeah.
Retirement came when? What year? And how old were you when you retired?
Oh, so I was 65 when I
Oh,
retired.
went right.
Yeah.
So, and it would have been what, in the early 80s that you retired, or?
83. At first it was really great when we went to Europe and we bummed around for 2.5 months, and we went to China and just had a wonderful time traveling. So when I was tired of traveling, I went back to the university and I started taking the women's studies courses.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that sort of set me off onto the direction of doing unpaid side work for the Canadian Abortion League.
Oh, okay.
And that was when abortion was a big
Right, yeah.
thing then. A friend of mine had been a member of a study group of women, and they became the Older Women's Network, and she was trying to persuade me to join. There was the Ontario Coalition of Senior Citizens Organizations, and that had just sort of opened up. There were a few men who started that up, and they were very much sexist. So,
In what way? How so?
Well, it was the prevailing idea at that time for men who were active. They did all the thinking and the planning, and the women did the coffee.
In 1985, we're talking?
Oh, we're talking, beyond that. We're talking 1980, 1990. So, that's going on.
So how did you respond to that?
So, fought it.
Yeah.
And well, by just standing up and saying, you're not the only ones in this world, and we have a place. And talking the women libs talk.
Yeah.
And so I got elected chair of the school.
Of late, we've been talking more about ageism. So, what are some of how did dealing with sexism...
Well, it's the same basic attitude that nobody is as important as I am, that kind of attitude. And it's whether it is older people or whether it's women, it's the same basic attitude, I think.
What has been the motivating force for you to be so active for so many years with women's issues and older women's issues?
Well, because I got a big high out of it. I mean, this was my way of living more fully.
And did you always know what you had to contribute?
No.
Were you confident?
No. I was very shy when I was younger, very shy. And the idea of speaking out was really horrors. But somehow or other, bit by bit, just little steps, I got into it.
And you still are getting
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
What kept me going was the feeling that I was accomplishing something. It provided much more zest and much more interest in my life.
So if you had any, I guess, suggestions, recommendations for younger seniors.
Well, there are many ways of becoming involved. I mean, it's not for me to tell people how to get involved. It's a question of seeing what openings there are or in what way you feel you can make a contribution.
Mother, grandmother, advocate. Thanks, Bea. We're off camera.
Yes.
Are we?
We're off camera now, we can really talk.
Just the